What's the weirdest sexual tension you've had? I had a constant hard-on for my humanities professor in college. She was in incredible shape for a 50-something-year-old woman. She just had this radiating sexual energy, and the way she dressed didn't help. She didn't dress inappropriately, but figure flattering. I did some additional group study sessions in her office before exams. It was usually a group of about 5 to 8 of us. I was often the last to leave, usually engaging her in conversation. The air was static and I felt like the feeling was mutual but never acted on it. I often wonder what if one of my coworkers is always staring at my dick, and when I notice her doing it I get harder, which makes her stare more, and one time I got a full-on boner while we were chatting and guy wanna fuck her. If people acted on their urges, this thread would have become full of porn. Lol. Matched with a former coworker on Tinder, disappeared from Tinder before our plans. A few months later I go back to work at the job she was and is still there. Now a few weeks ago she's inviting me out with all her friends. We've always been flirty, but now we're hanging out quite a bit. You could cut the tension with a knife. Hoping to land a new job soon so I could knock her screws loose. I used to work at a restaurant as an SA. Nothing fancy, but the tip out was good enough to cover college expenses and a little drinking on the side. One day, I clock in, walk out onto the floor, and the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life is posted up at the host stand. And what's more, she comes up to me mid-shift to ask me some question. I don't remember her question, but I do remember that she kept brushing up against me while asking it, too much to be a coincidence. I was hooked, but way too insecure to do anything about it. A bunch of us would go out for drinks after close, so after I stammered my way through that first interaction I started seeing her out a lot after work. One time, she and I got to talking, with the help of a couple shots of tequila, and she told me that she's had a crush on me from the minute she saw me. I told her I felt the same way, but I never made any moves past that because I was slated to move out of the state in like 3 weeks and I knew I was already catching way too many feels. On my last day of work, she made me a goodbye card and got everyone in the service staff to sign it, even the ones I didn't know. She signed it to the hot one. Not planning on throwing that note away anytime soon. Dude, I'm a 27M and I have a 52F coworker who I swear has a thing for me. And, at least emo, she's def a MILF. When she first joined my department I just thought she was really nice, which she is anyway, but eventually I started to notice some things. She was always kind of touchy with me and always found me funny and was super happy to see me, but I just figured that was her personality, even though it seemed a little extra with me. But then one day I watched her just stop dead in her tracks and straight up high flip me before opening the door to her office. Like looked me all the way up and down. Then all the things that I had thought were just part of her personality seemed a bit more suspect. One day she called me smooth and a stud. Sometimes I'd catch her biting her lip when she'd look at me. And the thing that really made me wonder was when she asked me to help her with something on her work iPad and she stood very much in my personal space so I could get a look at it. And she inched closer and closer to me until eventually her shoulder was lightly resting on my chest. And she did not move it. The next day she came in and just leaned on my chair while I was sitting in it. Yesterday was her last day before moving back to her old department, and when I said goodbye to her she wrapped me in a super tight hug, running her hands along my back and everything. Nothing did ever happen between us, but damn, there was always this really weird flirty vibe we had with each other. And she would giggle like a schoolgirl at my jokes. It would have been a bad idea even though she was single, not legally, but she had been separated from her husband for a significant period of time. She was in the process of getting out of an abusive marriage, and also, I wouldn't ever pursue something purely physical with a coworker, and that's all this would have been, especially in my own department. In order for me to pursue a coworker there would have to be some level of romantic interest in addition to sexual interest. But I'll be damned if there wasn't something in the air between us. I'm a girl. I know this is askmen and whatnot, but I've got an awkward one. I had a major issue with my obgyn when I was pregnant. It was absolutely terrible and I got super embarrassed anytime I had an appointment. My poor husband. He was a trooper through all those damn hormones. Slept on my hand and woke up with a boner. Felt like it wasn't even my own hand. My high school English teacher was a total mid-30s MILF. She dressed well, for attention, and every boy and male teacher noticed. Came back after my first year of college after playing on the club rugby team and went to go say hi because aside from her being hot she was a really good and passionate teacher. Oh boy was it awkward. She was looking like a dime as always and was way more friendly. Didn't know it then, but looking back it all makes sense. Nothing would have ever happened, but it's a funny memory. Not exactly weird, but I think I've only ever experienced mutual sexual tension once. I was friends with this girl in college. We would always hang around between classes and shoot the bull, enjoying each other's company. I was probably the only guy who enjoyed listening to her talk about issues like feminism, social democracy, climate change, etc. One day she offered to give my broke self a ride home. I had no car in college and took multiple city buses. She wanted to stop at the small house she was renting for a bit, and we ended up hanging out for a few hours, having a couple drinks, talking, walking around the wooded area in her backyard. She took me home, and we shared a lingering handshake that was rife with the tension, but I didn't realize it, and I was too afraid to ever share that I would have liked to try and build something between us. After college ended, she moved back home a few hours away. I miss her to this day. For a while there was some sexual tension between me and my best friend's sister. She is 5 years younger and I've known her since she was 12 years old, so there weren't any feelings there at first. Once we were in our 20s we all went down to Mexico and she was making it pretty obvious that she was interested but also extremely anxious that her brother would be pissed. We were dancing at a club there and he had a private convo with her afterwards and that pretty much put an end to it. Normally I would be pissed that a friend would interfere with two adults doing anything that isn't his business, but the truth is it would have been complicated for various reasons and could have ruined a couple really close relationships, so I'm glad nothing ended up happening. My former schoolmate since kindergarten. We were closer to each other than any guy was all throughout school. We were always together during school trips and sat next to each other a lot. Most guys are terrified of her sharp wit, sarcasm and her propensity for soul-shattering insults, but I'm one of the few guys in her who realizes how much of a decent human being she is when shit hits the fan, and I think she realizes that. She's always happy to see me when we meet. We troll each other on social media. We're super comfortable around each other and she lets me touch her in ways most guys won't get away with since high school, and despite the sarcasm she seems to find something to compliment me on. I have a hard-on for her but I haven't told her yet. She hasn't been dating for a couple of years because she put on a little weight and it dented her self-esteem. If only she knew I'd fuck her regardless. The feeling gets stronger every time we meet. Wow, what a perfect time post. There's a barista that I have the hots for, she's so if only I had the words to describe her. I think there's some sexual tensions between us but it's hard to gauge. I think she's starting to warm up to me. I think she's got a great voice, she sounds really smart and mature, so WTF is she working as a barista? I would love to do her on the iced coffee machine, lol. Today we had a nice laugh together. She kept saying iced tea when I ordered iced coffee. The other day when I was in the store and didn't see her I was disappointed, then all of a sudden she popped up from cleaning a low shelf and scared the shit out of me. I figure I have a crush on her besides wanting to have sex with her. My best friend's mom, she was just banging looking. My high school physics teacher. She was okay looking physically but she had a sexy voice and she was insanely smart. I was typically shy, quiet, and well behaved, but with her I couldn't hold it back and I'd openly flirt with her, but she was always serious and professional, and would fire witty retorts back at me which only made me want her more. Wish I could remember her name. When I was in GR 12 in high school there was this girl in GR 11. We were in the school play together. She was the typical drop-dead gorgeous popular HS girl. We'd known each other before that year, and were always a little friendly because of being in the OK together, but the rehearsal process leading up to the OK got tense. At one point we were doing karaoke and she pulled me up to the stage to do a hilarious gender bend, "You're the one that I want." We would constantly accidentally walk in on each other in the change rooms and just chat and hang out while changing. One time she was stretching to warm up for a dance solo. Anytime anyone else walked in she'd tell them to GTFO because she was stretching, but I was just hanging out with her while she was basically in her underwear. I wish I could say this story has a happy ending. Unfortunately it was one of those cases where about 8 months later I woke up and realized, I get the hots for authority figures too. It was hard in high school, cucking myself like that. When I was a freshman in university this girl and I hated each other and everyone knew that we would just make fun of one another on site. But we were actually in love with each other and were too proud to do anything. We kept in contact periodically, and then about 5 years later we went to dinner together while both of us were in long-term relationships. We knew that. We went to a bar and drank, then to my apartment. We would talk shit about our then she got on my lap and we started making out. I was really in love with my girlfriend at the time, so I stopped her and said it's good that we finally got that out of the way. Then I dropped her off at her boyfriend's house. 3 weeks later she blocked me on everything. I used to go to an askmen gym. And I am definitely not gay or anything, but good gracious, the whole place had this enormous sexual energy flowing through the place and everywhere smelled pure testosterone. My God, I felt like I was in a JoJo episode every time I was there. Miss my time there. I remember a girl I was casual friends with in community college, had this vibe about her that struck me as very singular, but at the time I could not place it. After a year she suddenly moved away due to family issues, and I was mildly bummed out because she was a huge movie geek and recovering theater rat like myself, and lunch was always more fun when we could hang out and shoot the shit. I took a short one-semester hiatus from school the next year to work some jobs and play in a band, and at the end of that summer the band I was in played opener for a show in the next city up, and guess who was in the crowd? Yup, Miss Long and Lean herself. After the set was over, and my rig was stowed in the van, I went back into the bar for my free drink, and chatted her up, and it was like old times, only now the vibe was overwhelming sexual tension you could damn near taste. She was in the city to visit her older sister, and look for a part-time job before she went back to school in the fall, and her sister's place was just around the corner, and well, the release of tension had never tasted so damn good. Literally the best/only one-night stand I've ever had that was both memorable and worth it. I never knew the human tongue could do that kinda. Hey, nope, not gonna finish that here. Mine was weird in how I didn't realize what was going on until way too late in the game. I had an ex-friend who would always pick fights with me. She would nip at anything she could to get a rise out of me. For example, one time I and my GF all went out to a club and my girl and I started making out, so my friend started taking shots at me until I finally asked her what her problem was. She wouldn't respond for the rest of the night. A few more occasions occur until my GF pulls me aside and says, "You know that ex-friend wants to get in your pants, right?" A switch flips in my brain and it all makes sense. All the venom and the snide and the fire, and it was all because this girl was having a one-sided love affair. I call her up and ask to meet. When we meet up, I ask her, point blank, if she wanted to get with me. Her answer was all I needed to prove my GF right. In 9th grade, me and this other girl were always at odds. We were complete opposites, and were usually butting heads, but would occasionally be somewhat friendly towards each other. It was always a gamble whether or not she would be pissed at me, or nice to me. One day, in our shared advisory class, she asks if she can braid my hair. I have really long blonde hair, and I reluctantly agreed to it. I didn't have the energy to try and fight it, so I just sat in the seat in front of her, and let her do her thing. She began to very slowly brush my hair, and play with it. While she was doing all of this, she was occasionally bumping her boobs into the back of my head as well as complimenting my hair a lot. Basically every nerve in my body was firing like crazy, but in the end she finished my hair and I just sat back down. I had always had a small crush on her, and this situation certainly didn't help my feelings go away. Of course I was an oblivious idiot then, not realizing that she probably liked me. I work at a grocery store and there's a regular customer I've been encountering for years. Every time he comes in we end up making extended eye contact. I want him so badly, but I'm too chicken shit to approach a total stranger like that, and I get the sense that he's way too polite to hit on a cashier. Fucking typical that the one customer that I actually want to hit on me is the one customer that never does. In community college I had a professor for an English class who was a total babe. Always wore jeans, boots, shirts with the sleeves rolled up and a couple buttons unbuttoned that you could see some chest hair. Anyways, one day we were all getting some graded essays back, and when I got mine it had a note on the last page that said "See me." I was nervous and expecting the worst, like he might have thought I cheated or something. I talked to him after class and he tells me he is very impressed with my writing and what got me into philosophy. Prompt was to discuss a quote that impacted us. I chose John Locke. As I'm about to leave he offered me that if I ever wanted to discuss philosophy with him that I'm always welcome to stay after class and chat. Ever since I always felt that we saw each other differently and there was just something in the air when I was in his class. Never stayed after class since that essay. Why? Some women just have massive sex appeal. They exude sex. Like a moth drawn towards the flame, it sucks us in. Edit. Apparently some guys here seem clueless as to what I'm talking about for some reason. So, I must clarify. Some women are just sexy with the way their body moves with whatever they do, like walking in heels. Some women look sexy walking in heels and some clomp around like horses. I could give more examples but I'm clearly wasting my time on here already. I had a boss who was within 32 to 38 years old and she always looks stunning and clean. She's never had baby yet. She's just too flirty sometimes, and one time while at work she winked at me and I was like, yo, WTF. Starting that day I always had my eye for her cause damn she was just hot AF. Sometimes we would pass by each other in the hallway and we would just lock eyes like crazy. Sometimes we'll go cold and ignore each other. When we close distance, we'll get awkward, our nostrils would flare up and either one of us will blush a bit. One time we were both alone in the office because my other boss called me to do my training in his PC. I was done already and I want to speak to her, so she asked me if I am done already and I said yes. I knew she could feel the tension too low because she was hesitant to speak to me that time, and I guess we were both waiting for my other boss to come back, but it's been a while, so she stepped up and helped me close the training course. I was sitting and holding the mouse that time and she came close and stand beside me and her hand just touched mine, so I removed mine and let her do it. Then she asked me to enter my password, so I did. Then she proceeded to finish it up while I was just sitting there. Then we both paused for a bit without saying anything, and I could see her hand going through her legs while scratching it a bit. Her legs are just blessings. That's probably the sexiest thing that happened to me at work. Boy oh boy. She was wearing a tight skirt that time that ends just a few inches above the knee. But I won't forget that. It happened in the morning and throughout the day I can't stop thinking about it. While I was living in USA, I went to a business course and met a Taiwanese girl that was very cool and kind. She had a boyfriend who was also a very cool guy and I befriended them. I preferred to be around her only when there were people with us because whenever we were alone, she started acting weird and things usually went awkward really fast. I mean, I also couldn't take my eyes off her most of the time in class, but I wasn't going to do anything because she had a BF, so I just kept it as my secret crush. One day I got invited to a friend's house to eat some Korean barbecue and so I went and there she was, without her BF. We stayed together all day long and at the end, we decided to leave together because both of us lived in Manhattan, and while waiting for the subway, she leaned on my chest and I decided to hug her tight against me, and well, long story short, we fucked hard that night, but then an avalanche of drama ensued for the next couple of months. The most typical porn trope ever, the repair guy. Worse, I was in high school. I opened the door to a cute guy who is there for the plumbing or dishwasher or something. You know what weird thing of your eyes locking while heat steams off your body? Yeah, that happened. And since I was a very introverted teen and he was a hot repairman, I immediately hid in some corner of the house till he left. In my 20s, I had a female coworker in her 40s or 50s hitting on me like I was in my 30s. Well, 4 had a lot of that sexual tension, but the one that sticks out the most was this chick I used to work with a couple years ago. A coworker, what a surprise. After working with women I realized why most cases of infidelity are with someone from work. Anyway, I used to work in a warehouse and the men worked on one side doing all the heavy lifting while the women were in the other side packing stuff up. Her name was Brenda. She was about 5 feet 10 inches, maybe 5 feet 11 inches, pale white, black hair, long legs, thin, and she had this face you just want to kiss. I remember the first time I saw her, as soon as we noticed each other it was like no one else was in the room. Man, if we would come near each other it felt like two magnets when you hold them near each other. There was electricity in the air. Sometimes she would come by and hand me stuff I needed for work and goddamn it was intense. I would catch her looking at me and giving me this really cute smile. I knew it was dangerous, so I told myself that I'm just going to avoid her as much as possible. We were really attracted to each other, but well, I know they do that with plenty other guys, so I knew I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Anyway, I thought I'd ask my friend about her since he's been at that place for longer, and it turns out that she's been fucked by like 3 other guys that worked there and she had a boyfriend at the time. As usual, I made the right call with these hoes brew. 100. There was also the girl who worked at the Costco I used to go to. I happened to be in on her second day working there, and every time she was working when I was in we'd end up chatting and laughing and flirting. I ended up moving to the next town over eventually, and stopped going to that Costco, sadly. Swear to God, My dog was giving me the strangest look the other day. I'm currently dealing with a lot of sexual tension with a guy in the same course as me. He's 9 years older than me and is in a 6-year-long relationship with his GF. I've never felt attracted to anyone in my life before. I'm 25, and I don't know how to navigate this situation. Should I just distance myself from him? I want to be his friend, but I'm worried that the feelings will be too much for me to act sensibly. I think he feels the same way towards me. There's this girl at my uni who I have the most awkward sexual tension with. We both stutter in conversation and say the most nonsensical things because the tension puts us in autopilot. For instance, I greeted her one morning with an awkward sit-down, stand-up hug which resulted in me accidentally groping her boob. After a couple seconds of groping I realized I wasn't clasping her shoulder. I nonchalantly apologized for groping her, to which she responded, "That's totally fine. I hope that isn't the last time somebody does that." Fuck. Never has my regret for something reversed so quickly. She is much more confident and sexually experienced than I am, yet we continue to engage in tense awkward moments together. A girl on Fortnite once called me cute. It ain't much, but it's honest work. The awkward times that I don't want it to sound like I'm into someone when texting but don't know how to word it in a different way that can't be contextually confused with sexual desire. Shit happens. I'm crushingly lonely and awkward lol. The weirdest for me was mutual non-attraction. I had a friend who was an attractive woman but just not my type, and we hung out a lot during a time when we were both single. This fact led to a lot of hilarious moments, like a bunch of white knights wanting to jump me for shit-talking her while playing pool, her trying to use me to deflect losses but me saying I'd cur, etc. But then there were the weird parts where she'd essentially be verbally friend-zoning me at the end of the night when I was already half passed out in her spare bedroom. But those, "I'm glad we can be friends that aren't sexually attracted" statements, which continued after we both met our current spouses, really were awkward. I was in a juvenile rehab for heroin addiction, and in the lunch hall appears the cutest girl, in for the same thing, I'd ever seen, with a black eye from tripping during a recent power outage. For posterity she thought I was the biggest loser she'd ever seen, and to be fair I often wore a shirt with that word on it. I quickly found out she was a lesbian, begrudgingly wrote it off, started passing notes, gender-separated facility, with her roommate, which were read aloud between each other unbeknownst to me. Dated roommate for a couple years before breaking it off after infidelity on her part. Saw black eye girl all the time, we were all friends. Fast forward a couple years and the girl with the black eye is visiting me during a heroin distribution sentence. And one day, I'm out. And we're sitting in the car after I picked her up from a volleyball game. And she kissed me. My brain exploded. I thought the rules of the universe has just been shattered. I did not comprehend life for weeks. My poop tied itself in origami animals and I often missed my mouth trying to drink things. I'll skip the in-between because good green god it's a doozy, but essentially Jim and Pam's story to the T, to the point I was helping her make fake flowers for her wedding to a Navy SEAL while being madly in love with her and vice versa. For years, unbearable sexual tension. 5 years later we're married, have an amazing son, and hopefully a daughter here soon. I encouraged her into college and she scored the highest of any student ever on one of her recent teacher exams. She's a gem and I'll never love another person the way I do her. A lot of PPL in this thread need to learn how to pull a fucking trigger. I have a really close friend and our relationship has been the most awkward. In our group of friends there is about 10 of us and we are always crashing at someone's house, and every time me and her end up in the same bed, alone, while everyone else is sleeping in the living room or whatnot. She is always stirring on my lap and cuddling with me when we are watching movies or whatever. I don't know if she's into me and I'm not confident enough to make moves on her. Plus I don't want to risk our friendship. Also everyone in our group always asks me if we are banging. It's so awkward that everyone is assuming we are and nothing has happened yet. I went to our school reunion and I met my mate's then girlfriend, now wife. She was just very engaging, and was too comfortable with me. I tried to leave them to join other groups but we kept bumping into each other the entire night. It got worse as she got drunk. My mate wasn't too happy, but I just tried to play it cool. Okay, this happened in my last year of high school. I was dating this chick of which I had a mad crush for 3 years prior, and in my point of view I had finally won the lottery. 2 months in the relationship I break it off with her because of her mother. Her mother was 45-50-ish, no concrete clue, recently divorced and deaf MILF material. And since I met her there was this thing in the air, she was overly touchy and always around me when I was there. At first I thought like she wanted to watch us and be protective towards her daughter. Nope. One night we go out, me and the family, daughter, mother and older brother, restaurant, and we ended at a bar, had a couple of beers but she drank a lot. We all go back to her house, and kinda like go to our rooms, for me my girls, and I couldn't sleep so I go to the living room to watch TV and she's there with just her panties. At first I was kinda blank-minded, right? But she spoke and just told me to sit, so I did. And well, I trust you guys can figure out the rest. My friend and I were chilling in my living room of my apartment and I had some condoms out just cause I had a bunch and would leave them out on the coffee table for friends. We were talking about our dry streaks or something like that and she looks over at them and goes, "Damn, wish I could be using one of those right now." Hindsight is 20/20, but present sight should still be at least good enough for me to have seen that could be a cute lol. Though I tried making a move later on, maybe a few weeks later, and she said she wasn't down. But maybe she was seeing someone by then. I don't know, timeline is messy. I try to forget about my idiocy. My current boss and me have some pretty strong sexual tension. She's honestly one of the only reasons I don't quit since she's so goddamn sexy. I work with about 4 different women at my current job. I'm a really nice looking guy and in really great shape also. So I sorta expected some flirting or whatever. It's well beyond that at this point. Women are wolves in sheep's clothing. I've had a coworker while in mid-conversation with me, tap my penis with the back of hand. It still shocks me till this day because I've never led her on in any way whatsoever. I had a coworker ask me if she could pay me for sex. Others tried to show me nudes. They stalk my social media and tell me about it. I have tons of really great stories but I'll stop here. A friend of mine thought that his cousin was very much into him while they were drunk one night. She moved in and my friend said something like, "Hey, you're really pretty but this is unbelievably wrong in every aspect," to which she replied that she was reaching for her phone behind him. I don't think they talk a lot anymore. My senior year I joined theater and this girl and I hit it off hard, always openly flirting, teasing, playing. Eventually on a drama club outing we went to a corn maze and she ran off to hide and I tracked her down. When I pulled away the corn and saw her face I was almost like an inch or two away. I know if I had gone in for a kiss I would have got one, not just in that moment but probably the course of the year, but she was in a relationship of 4 years already and I wasn't the guy to do that. I've got another one. Not sure if this is sexual tension but it's a funny story. The year after my friends and I graduated high school, so between the ages of 18 to 19, we all took a gap year and did lots of drugs. There was this girl 3 years younger than us who basically fucked my whole friend group. Her name is Lexi. First my friend Jay, then me, then Chris started dating her, lol. One day she calls me hysterically crying and she's like, "Please come pick me up. I just saw your car pass me, come back, Chris hit me." I was probably high on something so I wasn't sharp enough to make an excuse in order to not get involved. So I picked her up and I start driving towards her house. Chris sees me and stops short in front of me. I almost hit him. He was like, "Get out of the fucking car, pussy," and spits on me. So I get out of the car and he's like, "Put your hands up," and I'm like, "Chris, I'm not going to fight you, just take it easy, let's talk." I'm standing there trying to talk to him and he swings at me and he misses, and I hit him right back in the mouth. I go, "See what you made me do?" So he almost starts crying and he's like, "Over Lexi, bro? Over Lexi, you hit her friend?" I get back in the car and I'm really pissed off cause I just hit my best friend at the time. We get to her house, I pull up into the driveway and she goes, "I swear to God," she goes, "no one's home, we can do something if you want." And I'm just like, "Get the fuck out of my car, Lexi." Can't believe that was nearly 10 years ago. Time flies. There was this really cute girl in my class and I knew for a fact that she had a thing for me. We would all hang out together, spend a lot of time after college. Every time we hung out she would come and sit right next to me, she would laugh like a little girl for all my jokes, hug me for no reason pretending she got scared of something, always waited for everyone to leave just to hang out with me privately. She would call me in the weekends asking me to help her with something, and after meeting her she told me that it's sorted and we can go out for lunch now that I'm already with her, and also didn't let me pay for my food. Happened about 4 to 5 times. We started texting and I flirted with her a couple of times and she was more than happy. She probably wanted me to make the move and do something. But one of my close friends was crazy about her, but he didn't have the balls to ask her out and she had friend-zoned him. I know that if I have sex with her he would be shattered. So I refrained from doing anything even though I wanted to fuck her like crazy. It was really awkward sometimes with my friend around when she tried to get comfortable. I wanted to get comfortable but both of us couldn't. She eventually lost interest thinking I was an idiot, and my friend moved out of town soon after that and she got married to some guy and moved to New Zealand. P.S. I was a virgin when this was happening, so even a little bit of attention I got from any girl would make me think about her for a couple of weeks. Get ready for a bit of a story. So it's my former coworker's now ex. She became his ex when he cheated on her with my ex. Before that happened, we really didn't talk or really acknowledged each other's existence. After they broke up, we started to talk a bit, and hanging out together. Once when I went out with her friends, she started to lean on my chest while we were all talking. She then texted me while we were with everyone that we should go grab drinks together elsewhere. So off we went, talked more, got closer to each other, flirted, and whatnot. Eventually, I had to tell her I didn't think it was a good idea for us to hang out with each other alone, since I still worked with her ex, and we had a bunch of mutual friends at work. We stopped talking, but we would still see each other since we had mutual friends, and would always be talking with each other by the end of the night while drinking. It all culminated to after a long night of drinking, when I dropped her off, she told me she needed help walking to her door. When I walked to help her, she took my hands and placed it in between her legs, where she wasn't wearing anything. We ended up hooking up that night. I figured it was okay to try and pursue it more. In the end, she sat me down and plain told me she doesn't like me that way, but we could still be friends. Now we're at this weird stage whenever we go out with others, where we'll sorta engage with each other, but we, or at least I, don't know how to act. I, 24 meters, live in a big house with a bunch of other dudes around the same age as me, and we have a cook, 26F, and she's smoking hot but she's engaged. Most of the guys are really awkward and shy around her, but I try to be cool around her and we talk every now and then. There's been a few instances where our conversations ended up about our partners and she's asked me about my type. I'm kind of a serial dater and she gives me shit about it. And then there's been a few instances where she's complimented me, and one time she told me that she wants to get new tits, and of course I told her that her tits are perfect and she chuckled. There was one time when I was with one of the other guys and I was asking for my salad a certain way and she replied, "As you wish, I'll do anything you want," and I'm sure it's just a language barrier thing, but it sounded so dirty when she said, and my buddy started mocking her when she walked away like he was jealous. She added me on Instagram and DMs me to tell me when my food is ready, which she hasn't done with any of the other guys, and some of them have made jokes about us being too close. Whenever we're talking, there's always really intense eye contact and I can help but smile a little, and I notice she smiles too, and I really feel something there, but her being engaged to someone that works in our company poses a big problem, so I won't even joke about it with her. But man, if she ever makes a move or somehow breaks up with her fiancé, then I'm risking it all. Is it just me, or are all of the comments describing situations in which it is perfectly normal for there to be sexual tension? For example, an attractive colleague was attracted to me. Yes, and? The only thing slightly weird about these situations is that nobody acts on the mutual attraction. Went to get physiotherapy. The lady had huge boobs. Had a very hard boner, which she clearly was aware of. So many people here not getting their dicks in at work when one party is leaving in a month. For fuck's sakes, why? You can keep your legs closed for 3 years but can't keep your mouth shut for 3 weeks? A coworker started a few months ago. Literally, the first day we hit it off. I don't know how to exactly describe it, but it's like we easily joked with one another. We are both introverted and essentially the same cultural background. We are both in the same grad programs and have slightly different paths and goals, and we are both ambitious in comparison to our respective BF/GF, yay I know. She gets extremely close to me when I'm training her or I'm just doing something in general. Does the whole walk in front of me and slow down, and I constantly catch her staring at me from across the room. Always messes around with me. We have the same kind of witty tort/sarcasm and can talk in depth about academics and field. Also, signs up for all the on-call shifts with me. Recently, she started playfully jacking my headphone and hiding it on her person. One thing led to another, and we basically hit 2ND/3RD base while at work. Obviously, we are both missing something in our current relationships that we are fulfilling with one another, be it physical touch or intellectual level and ambition. Needless to say, both outsos don't fit into that category and I hate it. There was this girl in a party. She went outside and I went outside a bit after. We had a moment, then she told me she just threw up. That was fun for a bit. My at the time best friend's girlfriend wanted to bang me. He had cheated on her with 3 different girls and she had no idea. I wasn't about to step into that can of worms. It's a shame though. She was pretty awesome, but stopped talking to me after I let her know after she found out that I knew he was cheating on her. I don't blame her. I had no idea what to do and opted to stay out of their business, but I often regret doing so. She did not deserve that at all. I really hope she's doing okay. It was my first week on the job as a cook in some modern Italian place in a hip part of town. My manager was a gorgeous girl who was a few years younger than me, 25-22. Maybe day 3 I'm cleaning and hear her having a loud discussion with her friends who work there about how she hasn't gotten laid in a while, she can't focus if she hasn't gotten dick, she wishes she had someone to just fuck her so she could get her head straight. It seemed to me like a conversation she wanted me to eavesdrop on. Honestly, it's out of character for me to do so, but I was kind of shocked to hear a girl speak so frankly and decided to try and capitalize on this porno-esque opportunity. So I say to her, you know, I have a friend who could probably help you, but he really doesn't like girls who smoke. She smoked cigs. It somehow worked like a charm and we spent a couple days flirtatiously talking about this friend and if I could hook them up, literally up until I went to her app on the pretext of sending my friend over to fuck her. We fuck. Then over the next few months never meet up again, but she would still flirt aggressively and openly with me at work, yet never wanted to pursue it further lest our breaking of the no manager/employee relationships rule get her fired. Definitely made work a ton of fun though, no regrets. The glory hole in the confessional. Went back home to get my shit together after failing in a large West Coast city. Got reintroduced to my childhood crush, except at age 31 she was married with 2 kids. We opened a restaurant together and always hung out after work. My good friend kept telling me there was strong chemistry between us and I blew it off saying we're just friends. She's married with kids. She doesn't like me like that. After 18 months I moved again, this time to another large West Coast city. Thought about her every day and she kept popping up in my dreams. We kept in touch and would talk and text here and there. After being here for just over 3 years I went home with the intention of telling her I had strong feelings for her. She struck first and said exactly what I was going to say. We've been having an affair for well over 6 months now and are madly in love. The only thing keeping her from leaving home is her 2 kids who she loves dearly. Basically waiting for them to get older so we can start a life together. Lots of sexual tension that we blew off as a platonic relationship despite being told about the chemistry from others. Her husband even witnessed it and specifically told her to never be around me. I believe it is too late now. No pictures? Emo. The best relationships are those that start out intense, when it's just like fire and electricity on sight. Might start out as a rivalry but it usually progresses to other things. This happened to me with the only guy I've ever taken seriously. We met our sophomore year in college and there was an instant connection. We became best friends, but then I broke things off completely and never got to explain to him why. No matter what though, even after I hurt him so much he was always so good to me and always there for me. The week we graduated I messaged him to catch up before we parted ways, so he picked me up and we went for a long drive. I was planning on using this hangout to get everything off my chest, but instead he told me things from his chest, and the tension in the car was unimaginable. In the same conversation this guy tells me he's getting engaged, to a girl he barely knows like FR. They'd only been talking for a number of months, and that he was always really attracted to me and really liked me. I blanked after he said he was getting engaged though, so my blurted autopilot response was that I loved him like a brother. Still, before this happened we had spent well over an hour together and you'd have to be unconscious to not notice the intense tension and electricity between us. I had my left leg folded up and was sitting in the passenger side and he couldn't stop glancing at it and me and wouldn't put his hand near the PRNDL or get his drink from the cup holder until I realized and moved my knee, which was at least an inch away from it. And the way he looked at me when he said he was attracted to me, and the up-down look he gave me when he said I was very pretty and attractive. I'm just glad he was busy driving. I can't imagine if we were both just focused on each other. Well, actually, we had stopped in a car wash for a minute at one point. It was like 11/12 at night, but he later admitted he was just trying to extend our time together, So we were both just relaxed and kind of facing each other, and I was like, "You're probably the only one that thinks so, that I'm pretty." And he just rolled his eyes and looked at me like, "You gotta be kidding." And I remembered how jealous he used to get of every male I interacted with, even our instructors. Suddenly everything made a lot of sense. I just laughed it off and like jokingly swatted his arm. I barely touched his shirt, like maybe brushed his arm, but it was literally like sparks were flying. I know we both felt it. He immediately got so serious and stiff and then just completely oriented himself facing forwards, gripping the steering wheel. I call chill joking manner was gone and I put my leg down and did the same. Now that I think about it, my whole body was basically pressed into the door lol, and when I turned my head against the window to look at him, he was the same way. Glad it was dark so he couldn't see my face turn red. He always used to love making me blush. This was our first time hanging out like this in a really long time, but the tension was so severe. Like we couldn't keep our eyes off each other even though he was driving. I hadn't seen him in a while. That was my excuse for not being able to look away. I had forgotten how his throat looked when he spoke and how his hair formed little waves from the curls, and how the texture looked so rough but also seemed like it would be so soft. And I have no idea what he was thinking, but I doubt he'll forget any part of how I looked that night by the way he was watching me. When he didn't realize I was watching him, he would be looking at my legs. When I would be talking, he'd watch my lips and cheeks and neck, and sometimes his eyes would wander more. We come from a culture where touching before marriage is a big taboo, so I figured he was just very old-fashioned. I always thought his awkwardness about us touching was just out of respect, but maybe my friends are right that there was something else there too. My friends also say he's rushing into this marriage because I broke his heart, but I'd about that. I mean, if he really liked me that much, why didn't he ever do anything or tell me? I asked him why he never said anything, and he said he was too afraid to lose me as at least a friend, but I think if he really wanted me, all he had to do was ask. Also, apologies for my English, I'm very ESL lol. Anyways, after I said I only liked him as a brother, he dropped me off pretty quickly lamau, and when I tried to message him the next day after getting over the initial shock, I really did want to get things off my chest and clear the air. Was hoping we could still be friends. He responded that he wouldn't be able to see me or speak to me again out of respect for my fiancée. Funny when compared to how much he respected her before I said the brother thing in the car that night. Went to a gay bar with some friends. I'm straight as an arrow, and so were most of my friends, but we went to support a gay friend of ours. One of the transvestite dancers looked so much like a beautiful woman that it had me excited. My gay friend assured me that it was a man, because he knew him, but he looked like all woman to me, and I'd never experienced that around a gay man at that time. I had a friend in college who loved to massage my shoulders when I was studying. His hands felt so good and relaxing. It never went farther than that, but I wish I had explored my bi side then.